Hello YouTubers, this is the noobifier. On the 8th of September, there was an AMA with the desire to answer our questions from Spectrum about dynamic events. These are your big ticket items such as Xenothreat, Ninetales, and in the future, Jumptown 2. The panel was hosted by Luke Presley, who is a lead designer, Edward Fuller, principal live designer, Rob Reiniger, assistant live game director, and Ben Dorsey, senior system designer. Here's what they had to say. There was a question about the pacing of trading and the replenishment gameplay. Perhaps it was too slow, to the point of sometimes stalling out the event. And there was a question about the future pacing for Jumptown 2. Ben answered by stating that the plan for Jumptown 2 is that the boxes will not need to be bought, and there is a limit of 300 over the entire server. New boxes are planned to respawn every 30 seconds, which preserves the stock, and physically having to carry the boxes rather than simply having them spawning within the cargo hold itself is seen as part of the gameplay loop. Fighting over larger cargo sets is going to become the challenge, and they said that the pacing would likely not feel slow. When asked about observed game-breaking issues with Xenothreat, concerns were expressed that we need to ensure that Jumptown 2 could launch cleaner to reduce frustration. Luke confirmed that what was observed as the cause of the issue, the javelin spawning in, wasn't actually the entire issue itself, and they did attempt a hotfix. They said that even if an event ran smoothly in the past, there's always unknowns that might in the future become bugs to address. There was a question about what happens to the broadcasts when one or more large event is going on. Rob commented that just like reality, many things are going to be going on at once, and that the current way of broadcasting to the entire server is not the final intent. Rob said that players in the future will be able to select or filter out what message types they want to hear to control the types of messaging and the traffic that they receive. So it looks like we will be getting what I asked for anyways, so good job 50% of the people who watched that video. A question about other ground-based large-scale mission events was asked. Rob commented that of course a dynamic event can be anything and triggered by anything. These can require FPS, ships, or both, which will naturally extend into vehicles as soon as players decide that there's a need for them. They said to watch out for the presentation at CitizenCon as it would give us more details about these features. Spectrum wanted to know if reputation would work on either side of a mission in the future. Luke confirmed that there's no specific timeline, but yes, whenever there's a mission, they want to add a counter mission, as this is seen as core of good gameplay. They said that once communication, status, and better tracking for what the player's doing, the possibility of the counter mission is going to become a lot more feasible. The question was asked about adding more non-combat jobs to the dynamic events, such as mining and refueling. Rob confirmed that these features are going to become available, and then the width of the event can scale to include these extra tasks. They suggested that these could be added to the contract manager as part of the dynamic content. There was a question about allowing for a dynamic event to occupy an entire system rather than a small part of the system. Rob commented that these are still early days, and they're trying to keep the events generally localized. They like the ability to see what we do with what we have, and it makes sense that as the tech improves, this can spread out or even increase the quantity of concurrent dynamic events running at once. Random triggers won't need to be added to begin events, as Rob said that they're working to add a deeper set of triggers based on what's actually going on. What they're talking about really sounds more like in line with what Tony Z was talking about with the Quanta system, where the game environment reacts to what's going on. Spectrum wanted to know why developers are focusing on these dynamic events despite the servers having breaking issues such as lag or desync. Edward confirmed that they need to add now and test now, as it's fundamental to the future of the game. The more often we test and adjust, the better the events will be in the future. I thought that was pretty obvious. Spectrum wanted to know about what might be done about lawful players getting crime stats accidentally when participating. Luke said that they learned a lot from previous events and looked specifically at what happens when so many players and AI get into one place. They've already worked to address friendly fire by adding a cooldown, which helped out, but there are still those edge cases that are inevitable. It's unfortunate, but the system will still see that as a crime. They said that there are still many fixes and work to properly account for bumps versus deliberate ramming, and they're making progress that we'll see in the next event. Spectrum wanted to know about if in the future, large-scale events might be used to counteract something such as high-density crime on a server. Ben said that the events are currently triggered manually, but Quanta will drive this, and then they said to refer to Tony Z's panel in the future. They'll be expanding the function of the Mobiglass to include visual feeds during announcements. Spectrum asked if the developers felt Ninetales was missing something that made it feel less engaging. Ben said that they used the postmortem to identify things like too few medical supplies, inventory capacity, and the payout for doing specific tasks. Ben also noticed that many players were simply too late to participate by the time they logged in. The blockade balance will be adjusted, and there will be work to ensure that nothing seems specifically repetitive to keep things interesting. Ben also confirmed that they want to balance the event timing to ensure that the community still sees them as special events and not just a regular part of the game. Luke confirmed that Xeno and Ninetales have access to military-specific gear because they're mostly made up of ex-Navy, and the assumption was that they would have access to naval shipyards. They confirmed, though, that not all of the ships are military-grade. Spectrum commented that the events seem to be repeating the same actions more or less for credit and wanted to know if there were plans to expand beyond this conventional grind. Edward said that yes, of course, that's always a plan, with completely unique goals based on improved logic. Once they become quicker with constructing the events, more story elements can be added to change things up. And that's it. The original is linked in the description. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. If you got something out of the video, please consider sharing it to a new citizen. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.